Hello everyone and welcome to ITLS Academy Empower the Youth. So today in this lecture we will going to understand the characteristics of foodborne pathogen. In the previous lecture we have discussed the characteristics of biological hazards, and in today's lecture we will see what are the foodborne pathogens and what are their characteristics and how they cause foodborne illness, what are the symptoms, what is the preventive measure to prevent them, and what diagnostic test you can take to test for a particular disease. So in this particular lecture we will going to understand that part. Now let's see the introduction part. So there are two distinct categories in which disease can be classified. So the disease, it can be classified into two categories. Okay, on the basis of what? On the basis of the pathogens that play a role during a disease causing process. Means how the pathogen is, you know, doing the role, or how the what is the role of the pathogens. On that basis the disease can be classified, that is a disease causing process. And the one is the infection. So infection, it is something that ensures when a host is invaded directly by microorganism, which after being established proliferates in the host. So here again I am repeating the disease. Okay, so the disease can be classified into two, depending upon the first is the depending upon the role of the pathogens that causes a disease causing process, and or you can say that is known as disease causing process. Second is the infection. Infection occurs when a a microorganism, it get direct entry inside the host body and it invade the host. Once the microorganism invade the host, it causes an infection. Okay, no, moving forward, then it is one that is intoxication. So intoxication means that after the introduction of a specific preformed toxins into the body of a host, subsequently including disease in the process in the presence or absence of the toxin producer. A food may also serve as a vehicle of transmission for biological hazards itself, or it may be have any metabolic product including various toxins. So, so it directly means that whenever any toxin producing pathogen or any toxin producing microorganism, it get direct entry inside the body of the host, and once it gets entry inside the body of the host, what it does, it produces toxins, and that toxins invade the host. That is known as intoxication. And in the previous lecture also I have discussed some of the toxin producing microorganisms, or you can say toxins producing pathogens that invade the human body. So one thing very important is here that food is also, you can say, serve as a vehicle, serve as a transmission, you can say, for what? For the biological hazard itself. For example, if a food is placed at an optimum temperature like 37 degrees centigrade during summers, so after 2 or 3 hours the food gets spoiled. Why? Because there is a microorganism activity that get inside the food item, and these microorganism, what they are doing, they are invading, or they are making the food unacceptable for human consumption. Let's suppose if someone take that particular food, okay, so what will happen? A person will get disease. The person will obviously get disease because he is consuming a food that is full of microorganism, or you can say a food that has an activity of microorganism. So to avoid that, to avoid the contamination inside the food, a food should have a proper storage area, should be stored at a proper temperature, and should be free from any sort of microbial contamination. But But again, I will repeat, if a person takes that contaminated food, he will become ill. So here food is serving as a vehicle of transmission for biological hazards. Okay, now these are certain symptoms that actually occurs when there is a foodborne disease, or you can say foodborne illness. And again, I'm just repeating myself just for the proper understanding, because in my lecture number 5 I have told you the graph, and I have told you the present status of foodborne illness globally. Again, I'm repeating, in US, among the 6 people, 1 people in a year die because of the foodborne illness. Foodborne illness or foodborne diseases, they are preventable, they can be treated, right? But if it becomes severe, if it becomes takes a face of a chronic, so sometimes it leads to a death of the person. That is the reason the present status says that among the 6 people, 1 people die because of the, oh sorry, 1 person die because of the foodborne illness. What are the major symptoms? So because of the foodborne illness, abdominal pain occurs, diarrhea is there, nausea, vomiting, fever, headache, chill, and sweating. Now let us understand what are the, again, the clinical symptoms. So it involves the majority of the foodborne diseases, that includes the acute diarrhea, vomiting, or some other manifestation of gastrointestinal tract. Sometimes whenever you take any contaminated food item or contaminated water you take, so these microorganisms activity, what it does, it leads to a disturbance in your intestinal tract. That is the reason the first symptom you feel is like vomiting, you feel nausea. Okay, then you feel your stomach is aching, then vomiting occurs, then diarrhea, and this occurs. So how they are affecting the gastrointestinal tract. However, the syndromes include involving the central nervous system or various organ, in addition to a chronic sequel, may be direct or indirect result of foodborne pathogenic microorganisms. Okay, now let's quickly understand the foodborne intoxication with the help of a diagram. So, foodborne intoxication, it is always associated with the consumption of preformed microbial toxins. And who causes these microbial toxins, preformed microbial toxins? By different microorganism or a pathogen that has a capability of producing a toxins. Okay, so if this type of food, it is consumed by a person, so the person will lead to illness. Which type of illness? The foodborne illness. And it is preventable, but it is also chronic. So it is very important for people to have a sensory analysis before consumption of any food item. Whenever I am seeing sensory evaluation, means you have to see the food, what is the appearance of the food, how the food is smelling. If you see that yes, the food is not appearing good, so you avoid that food. If the food is not smelling good, you avoid that food. If take First of all, take a very small bite, you can say a very small portion, very minute portion, you can keep it on your tongue and see whether the taste is good or not. If you find the taste is not good, then don't consume that food. Why? Because it will lead to the illness. Now moving forward, so these are certain foodborne pathogens. Today we will going to understand their characteristics. So the first one is Campylobacter. So the Campylobacter infection, it occurs in the small intestine. So the Campylobacter, it is a pathogen that causes a foodborne illness, and what it is doing, it is targeting the small intestine. Okay, as it is targeting the small intestine, and which type of bacteria? From the bacteria called Campylobacter jejuni. It is the type of a bacterial food poisoning. Okay, so Again, I'm telling you that all these foodborne illness, they are just all these foodborne pathogens, they are targeting our intestine or our gastrointestinal tract. And this campylobacter, it occurs from the bacteria called campylobacter jejuni, and it is focusing, or it is targeting on the small intestine, or you can say the infections from these campylobacter jejuni, it directly occurs in the small intestine, and it is the type of a bacterial food poisoning. Now coming to the next, that the infection that is caused by campylobacter is known as campylobacter bacteriorosis, and it is one of the most common cause of diarrhea. So if a person is having a diarrhea, so that is because of the campylobacter jejuni, and the infection that is occurred through this campylobacter is known as campylobacteriosis, and it is a bacterial infections. Okay, and you can get from any undercooked poultry or raw milk, untreated water. It is also possible to get sick from contact with the infected animal. So if what are the causes? So if a person consume meat that is not properly cooked, or you can say undercooked meat, if a person is consuming a raw milk, because in a raw milk there is thousands and thousands of microorganisms. So if you are consuming raw milk, then again there is a chances that you fall ill. And if you are consuming or drinking untreated water, so this all is because of the campylobacter, and it directly occurs in the small intestine and it causes diarrhea. Now comes the bacteria. Bacteria is one of the microorganism that is very harmful for human. As the same time, bacteria are useful for humans. So here we will going to understand those bacteria that are harmful for humans. So it is estimated that bacterial agents, they are responsible for approximately 30% of all the foodborne illness. Means the foodborne illness, among the 100% foodborne illness, 30% itself bacteria is responsible. So you can see these bacterial agents, they are invading the human beings. And the total, if I tell you the fraction amount, that is sorry, percentage amount, so it is 30%. And all the foodborne illness involving known as etiology. So, despite causing only 30% of the foodborne illness, so these bacterial agents in the food, they approximately result to 13,000 or 1,300 deaths annually, or you can say 1,300 deaths annually, or you can say there are 72% of death attributed to the consumption of contaminated food. That is the reason I told you that among the six people, one person die because of the foodborne illness. And here also it is written that 72% of the total death, they are attributed to the consumption of the contaminated food. Now see, we all are aware that there are gram negative bacteria and gram positive bacteria. So the gram negative pathogenic bacteria, they includes the genera of campylobacter, salmonella, Shringai, Vibro. So these are some gram negative bacteria, and it leads to the foodborne illness. Whereas the pathogenic species of the gram positive bacteria, that includes Listeria, Staphylococcus, Clostridium, or Bacillus, they are also contributing to the foodborne illness. Now, what are the symptoms that caused by the bacteria, or you can say bacterial infection? So most people with the campylobacter infections have diarrhea that can be bloody, fever, stomach cramp, or some people have a nausea or vomiting. And after consuming of the contaminated food, the severe symptoms occurs usually in 2 to 5 days after swallowing campylobacters, and usually and within a 7 days, means this is preventable. If you take right medicine on the right time, they are preventable. Then one of the most common is the salmonella. One of the most, I am saying one of the most, so it is really very you can say uh, important, and to not important, it is one of the major type of a gram negative bacteria that is responsible for causing infection in humans. So the salmonella or salmonellosis, it is an infection with salmonella bacteria, and they cause a severe diarrhea, fever and stomach pain. And the salmonella is what we commonly call it when you get sick with diarrhea and stomach pain. So whenever you are having some undisturbed stomach, or you are having a stomach ache, apart from having a stomach ache or pain, you are also having a diarrhea at the same time, then it is commonly caused by salmonella species bacteria. And these salmonella bacteria, it is the most common form of bacterial food poisoning in US. So in US, so it is also called salmonellosis, and to tell it apart from other illness, you can get it from different forms of salmonella bacteria, like typhoid fever. Now, typhoid fevers are one of the most common type of a fever that can cause because of the salmonella bacteria. And nowadays, people are getting sick because of the typhoid fever. Dengue is there, but dengue is not occurs through the salmonella, but typhoid fever occurs through a salmonella bacteria. Now, moving forward, let's see the symptoms of salmonella. So, the first symptoms is diarrhea. Sometimes in diarrhea, it is a bloody in color, and you have a stomach pain or the cramps in your stomach. This is one of the symptoms of salmonella. Fever, acute fever, nausea and vomiting is again one of the symptoms of salmonella, and headache. So whenever you are having an headache, or feeling feverish, or your body is aching, and you are having a severe nausea, then it along all, if you are facing all these symptoms at a time, then it leads to a salmonella, and it is it is caused by a salmonella bacteria. Now, how you can control, or how you can prevent it? So see, first of all, it is preventable. Typhoid fever is preventable, or any other type of a diarrhea is preventable. So what are the control and preventive measures? So if you are cooking and pasteurization, it is one of the control or prevention method through which you can kill salmonella bacteria in food. So a proper cooking of food, a proper pasteurizing of milk, or any beverage is very much important if you want to kill salmonella bacteria. That is the reason people say that eat properly cooked food. Why it is said that? Because properly cooked food does not have a salmonella bacteria. If the food is not cooked properly, then it leads to a type of a infection that is caused through a salmonella bacteria. So cooking and pasteurizing simply means like heating of milk or any beverage at a particular temperature for a particular period of time. So these are several ways to reduce the risk of salmonella while you are preparing food. So you should always make sure that don't make food for other if you are sick. If you are itself yourself is sick, then don't prepare food for others, because of the cross contamination could occur, and it will lead to the infection in the food, and it will make a other person also sick. Always wash your hands with soap, or with detergent, not detergent, with soap, or uh, and hand wash, and water after going to the bathroom or washroom. Wash your hands before and after preparing food or eating, because your hand came in contact with different kinds of surfaces, and every surface has microorganism. So make sure that before using or before preparing or eating in the food, your hands should always be washed. Wash food preparation and eating surface means you should always use food and food preparation and food eating surfaces and your utensils before and after use. Cook foods to safe temperature before eating, means the temperature again play a very important role, at which temperature you are cooking the food or at which temperature you are storing the food. Okay, so this is again very important. Now then is your Clostridium perfringens. So Clostridium perfringens food poisoning is an acute gastroenteritis caused by an infection of contaminated food. So it is, see, every pathogen, it is attacking your gastrointestinal tract. So again the Clostridium perfringens, they are also a type of a food poisoning that has a severe impact on your acute gastrointestinal tract, and it occurs due to the consumption of contaminated food. So symptoms are watery diarrhea or abdominal cramp. So what are the symptoms? Watery diarrhea, and if you are having a lower abdominal cramp. Diagnosis is by identifying the Clostridium perfringens in contaminated food, and it is usually caused by a mild clostridial infection. So this Clostridium perfringens, it is widely distributed in feces, soil, air and water. Everywhere these microorganisms are present, so they easily can contaminate meat, and if contaminated meat has consumed by humans, so it leads to many outbreaks. So this Clostridium is perfringens also have a capability of making a spore sometimes when you are severely cooking it, so they can germinate at that time and they can multiply, resulting in large number of bacteria. And when cooked meat is contaminated with this Clostridium perfringens, it is left at a room temperature, so it will lead to the infection. So it is very important to always consume a food that is free from any sort of microbial contamination. But if by chance you consume of contaminated food, and if you are facing any of the symptoms, you should quickly seek to a doctor and take a medication on time, and it will get away. Now, what are the diagnoses of Clostridium perfringens food poisoning? So the treatment leads to the treatment of the Clostridium perfringens is of food poisoning is supportive, and it is preventable, and through antibiotics you can treat it. And to prevent these kind of diseases, people should promptly refrigerate the leftover cooked meat and reheat thoroughly, means the internal temperature, before serving. So if any food is left behind, so you should always keep those leftover food in the cooked food in the refrigerator, especially with the case of meat, because meat is a highly have a chances of microbial attack of microbial contamination. So always keep the leftover cooked meat inside the refrigerator. You should always preheat the meat before consuming or before serving. And most of the people with the Clostridium perfringens infection do not receive any diagnosis. Infection is confirmed once you take a laboratory test, and if in the test it the test detect the presence of bacteria or their toxins in the stool or sample, so the bacteria are found in the food linked to illness. So before, it does not have any very early symptoms, you have a very mild symptoms, and once you seek to doctors, they ask you to perform certain types of diagnostic test, and if in that test you get a laboratory test, if the bacteria is detected, so according to that the treatment is done. Now, what is the foodborne illness, and what you need to do? No. So again, this is the summary of the whole of the lecture, that what is a foodborne illness. So again, we have discussed this, what is foodborne illness. So any illness or any disease that is caused by a microbial pathogens or a foodborne pathogen, which deteriorate the quality of the food, and once these deteriorated quality or contaminated food is consumed by human, and it will cause infection or it will invade the human health. Now, which what kind of bacteria you should always be aware of? Different kinds of species are there, like salmonella is there, like clostridium species are there, like vibrio species are there, like clostridium perfringens is there. So you should all staphylococcus, so every pathogenic bacteria you should always aware of. What is the role in preventing the foodborne illness? What is the role? So always make sure you eat a fresh food, you should always maintain a personal hygiene, you should always have a hygienic environment. Is the a personal hygiene, so a person should always be in a hygienic state. So as I was telling you that personal hygiene is very important. You should always have a hygienic condition. You should always be wearing a particular mask whenever you are sick. Always people who is handling the food, he or she should always be fit, free from any sort of diseases. And if a person is sick, then he should avoid cooking food for others, to avoid the cross contamination. And in case of suspected foodborne illness, you should immediately seek doctor, and you should not always ignore the symptoms, because it is preventable diseases, but again, if you take it lightly, so it become adverse, and it will leads to sometimes death of a person. So for the special note, I would like to say that these foodborne pathogens, again, you can always fight them, you can always help yourself before seeking to a doctor. Why I am saying this? Because you should always consume food before having a sensory analysis. You should always maintain your personal hygiene before consuming any food item. You should always place the leftover food inside the refrigerator, so to avoid contamination. So this is some special note. And yes, if you have certain symptoms, don't panic, because it is preventable. You should always seek doctor advice, and a proper medication, proper test can cure this foodborne diseases. And but yes, again, first of all, you should maintain the personal hygiene. That is the thing. So that's all about today's lecture. I hope you have understood the lecture. Follow ITLS Academy on different platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn. You can also get the ITLS Academy app from the Google Play Store. Subscribe ITLS Academy. Don't forget to press the bell icon. You can also visit our website, that is www.itlsacademy.com. And yes, this is our helpline number as well as our WhatsApp number, that is 7080833450. So you can simply call on this number and get updated. Thank you for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.